Coming out of the bye week, it's important to take a look at the landscape of the AFC and Houston's playoff chances, plus who's been underappreciated for the Houston Texans through 5 weeks.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Especially, let's have a round of applause for my everydayers from the Himalayas, making the Locked On Texans podcast your first listen of the day. Also, a round of applause for any newcomers, any new eyes, any new ears. Thank you for checking out the Locked On Texans podcast and listening to me, your Texans credential media member, Texans football analyst, also found contributing writer for Forward Times publication here in Houston, John Hickman. Got a fun show for you guys today, and hopefully you'll do a great job of interacting with me in the comments on YouTube or tweeting at me at John_Hickman12 on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it. Does Houston need more Nico Collins? And that conversation will be centered around coming off of this bye week. We know there's going to be a lot of pressure on CJ to continue what he's doing, Nick Caley, but who else does the Houston Texans need to step up? Also, who's been underappreciated for the Houston Texans on both sides of the ball? That'll be a conversation that stick around for that. That's important because it's a name some of y'all don't like. But for Houston through 5 weeks, as they play 5 games, he's been very important to any type of success the Houston Texans offense has had. Also on the defensive side of the ball, a group that never gets a lot of love, so we'll dive into that. But open up today's show looking at the AFC outlook, not just the AFC South, but the AFC division conference, all together. Houston really does control their own destiny. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every details because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. So stay tuned later for highlights in this week, moving the game forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Now, a couple of things that I want to share with you guys. The Texans are currently in the 8th spot in the AFC, 1 spot out of that last wild card spot, which is 7 now instead of 6, sitting at 2 and 3 at the time of this recording, with New England and Denver in front of them. Texans are also 1-1 in the division and 2-1 in the conference. Of course, those 2 wins come from the Baltimore Ravens in their last outing and the Tennessee Titans, who they just continue to stink. The Jags lose to Seattle, Houston's next opponent, on Monday night. And that coast team I was completely wrong about to kick off this year is sitting at the top of the AFC, guys. Now, what is the outlook on Houston's chances right now to make a real push? For me, based on week 6 and, everything that we've seen through the first 6 weeks of the NFL season, I think there are teams that are going to fall out and weaknesses will start to show and increase and become so glaring that opposing defenses like the one here in Houston or opposing offenses like the one here in Houston trying to figure things out, stacking back-to-back good wins, will be able to exploit once we get down the line of the NFL season. Now, look at Denver. That is a team that I truly believe in his second year, they don't trust their quarterback to win games, and that's Bo Nix. And we rarely see a team be able to win games down the stretch if that team is in that type of predicament, especially in this modern football where teams like to run the ball, absolutely, but when it gets cold out there and you need a quarterback to make a play, can your quarterback make a play once we get to November, December, and January, right? Also, the Chargers, I think this is a team who Houston also has to play towards the end of the season. I wonder how healthy this team will be by December. I really do. They have a very extensive IR list right now. Offensive line guys really banged up. And, Justin Herbert, a lot of y'all call him the if man. But Justin Herbert is going to feel that the most, through 6 weeks of the NFL season, he's been sacked 16 times. In the last 3 weeks, I believe that number is sitting at 8. The Jags. Houston is always bound to win a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, though my stance on that franchise has changed because that is a really good football team. Shout out to Liam Cohen, who has that team coached up very well. They lose to Seattle, so they're now sitting at 4-2. You look at Houston, if they go in Lumen Field Monday night against the 12th man, and if they beat Seattle, and then you also look at them following up a win versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, that bodes well for their chances to get either the AFC South Championship, the division, or sneak into the playoffs by getting one of those last wild card spots. And I also want to add, there are a lot of teams below Houston that should not creep up on them besides the Chiefs. You look at the AFC division, the conference, all together, a lot of bad teams. Some of those teams we didn't expect. Some of those teams we did expect for them to be bad. But there are a lot of bad teams, and those bad teams are only going to get worse. So when I look at the standings right now for the AFC, the playoff standings, Houston, again, at 8, 2-3. Kansas City, at the time of this recording, they are up over the Detroit Lions. But after that, Cincinnati at 2-4. I don't see Cincinnati getting better. Vegas at 2-4. I don't see Vegas getting better and being able to kind of surpass the Houston Texans. Miami 1-5. Cleveland 1-5. Then you look at Tennessee 1-5. The Jets. Oh my gosh, what a terrible franchise. 0-6. None of those teams should surpass the Houston Texans. None of those teams, especially you look at Baltimore, Miami, Cleveland, Tennessee, New York, right? Cincinnati will eventually get Joe Burrow back. But my question is, where will that team be by the time Joe Burrow gets back? And is it more advantageous for them to sit Joe Burrow for the entire year, play the draft game? Las Vegas, they went up against a bad a bad Tennessee team, but that is not a good team altogether. Geno Smith is playing some of the worst football in his career since his resurgence. So Houston has somewhat of an advantage being able to say, hey, where we are right now, no team under us besides the Chiefs, who the Houston Texans have to play at the end of the year. None of those teams should be a threat to us. We should be threats to the teams above us, and I think the Houston Texans should be able to put themselves in that predicament. And this may be cliche, but Houston absolutely controls their destiny. That is the most important aspect of this thing. For Houston, it's not about what other teams do, even though I just gave you guys 3 to 4 reasons for other teams falling out. But for Houston, they have to win games. And it is not easy. Seattle is a tough team. San Fran is a good team who might be breaking down at the wrong time, but they are a well-coached team. Buffalo is Buffalo, right? Houston has to win a division game against division mates Jacksonville and the very good coach, Indianapolis coach, who's at the top the AFC right now. The opportunities for Houston guys will be there. And hey, if there's anything everyone should be happy about, is that Houston may be getting healthier and figuring things out offensively at the right time, where other teams, the league may be catching up to them, or they may be breaking down. So I look at it for Houston to have a shot in these games. It is imperative for the players that we might look over a lot to continue to be factors, silently or not. So on the other side, coming up next, the flowers for the underrated and maybe the underappreciated. Stick around. This is going to be a segment, a topic, a conversation that may leave a lot of you guys walking away from it saying, wow, I did not know he was impacting this team in that way. However, Texan fans, you know the saying, shout out to Prime, you look good, you feel good. The problem is most dress clothes only check one of those boxes. They look sharp but feel stiff. Hot and hot maintenance. That's where Mizzen and Main comes in. Mizzen and Main makes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel comfortable. They also invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and they've perfected it ever since. I love that you can go from the office to dinner, even out to the golf course, still feel comfortable all day. It's all about comfort for me. I like to look stylish, but I like to feel comfortable. It's a feel of athletic wear, but also the look of professional menswear. So right now, Mizzen and Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first order at mizzenandmain.com with promo code LOCKEDONNFL20. Look good, feel comfortable. That's Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main, MAIN.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL20 for 20% off. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find a Mizzen and Main store in select states. And also, Texan fans, you talk about looking and feeling in style. How about driving in style? That's where Mazda comes in. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep the game moving forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward for me, guys, and I know the Houston Texans in the bye week. Some of y'all may call me a homer, and some of y'all may wonder, why am I talking about this team? But the moment that moved the game forward in week 6 was absolutely, undoubtedly, Drake May and the New England Patriots beating the New Orleans Saints. And I'm going to tell you why I'm picking Drake May. Drake May has started to come into his own. Drake May has started to come into his own swag on the football field. You've seen an improvement from year 1 to year 2, especially under Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel, also having the trust of his quarterback to go out there and deliver plays, at a high level and a high rate. He's got Stephon Diggs looking good. He's got Kayshon Boutte looking good. Pop Douglas getting in on the fun. The offense looks extremely better than they did a year ago, and a lot of that is due to what Drake May has been able to do in his second year under center. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Texan fans, I'm excited to talk to you guys about who has been underappreciated for this team. Now, there's a player, there's a unit, but overall, you look at a team that's 2-3. We get the nitpicking why the Houston Texans lose games, especially digging themselves into an 0-3 hole, right? And I think for those 3 games, you don't need to nitpick it. It was clear as day the offense wasn't able to score points, right? The offense was getting to the red zone, rarely getting to the red zone, and unable to come away with touchdowns. They're still leaning on, Kaimi Fairbairn. But in the last 2 games, there's been a guy, honestly, the last 3 games, there's been a guy that I think that we need to give a little bit more recognition to and give him some flowers because he's done what he has been asked of. And that guy is Mr. Hurdle Man himself, Mr. Jump Over a Safety himself, Dalton Schultz. Why Dalton Schultz? What we've seen from the Houston offense in the last 2 games, and again, somewhat dating back to the Jags game, is when the offense is not dealing with second and long and third and long, rhythm is being established. D'Amico has talked about it. CJ and Kaylee have both talked about helping each other out by executing and not having a high number of third and second and long excessively. Schultz is second on the team in receiving yards, but 8th in air yards travel. He's 10th in yak yards per catch, but he's also tied with Nico Collins for the most first down receptions. Nothing spectacular has come from Dalton Schultz. Nothing. And we could be real here, of course. Dalton Schultz has not been spectacular. Because of Dalton Schultz' lack of explosion or spectacularness, we still ponder, should the Houston Texans look outside the building for another tight end? And a lot of that has to do with Kay Stover's injury, Brevin Jordan's injury. They've had to rely on guys like, Harrison Bryant, Brendan Bates. But with what Houston is asking of Dalton Schultz, he has been doing it. So again, it's nothing spectacular from Schultz that should excite us and get us out of our chair. And I get that. But he's been extremely reliable for Houston, especially on first and third downs. First down for Dalton Schultz, 8 of 8, 65 yards, 4.1 yards, yak yards per catch. Third down for Dalton Schultz, 7 of 11, 73 yards, 4.3 yak yards per catch with 5 first downs and 10 yards per catch. And again, Houston is putting him in a situation where what they're asking of him to do, they're setting him up to do that, right? His out route has been extremely efficient for the Houston Texans offense, where he's run over 33% of his routes. And those out routes are just quick 5 and out. Also, I want to say his second highest route ran through the first 5 games, hitch routes. So 5 and just stop, 5 and out, right? Nothing spectacular. But 1st and 10 leads to 2nd and 5, right? If you look at what's going on, if Houston has a 3rd and 3, now you have first down. Again, he has 10 first downs on the season. On 3rd down, 10 yards per catch, 5 first downs. Very good for the Houston Texans offense on that 3rd down. Dalton Schultz is the guy that you forget about. You forget about Dalton Schultz because nothing about him is sexy. Nothing about Dalton Schultz in this game is sexy. But it's not about being sexy for Dalton Schultz. It's all about getting the job done. Now, secondly, if I'm shifting over another group that needs to have some flowers given to them, we talk a lot about Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, rightfully so. We talk a lot about Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter, rightfully so. Why? Those are the names. Those are the names at the sexy positions. Cornerback, edge rusher. In modern football, you need an edge rusher to get out to the quarterback, and you need a cornerback to be able to withstand times where they have to go out there and hold for 5 seconds. And you got Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter. They've shown they have the ability to do that. We know that those guys up front can get after the quarterback. But the D tackle and linebacker unit, I think, needs their flowers. The run defense since the Bucs game, especially rushing towards the inside defensive lineman. Against the Jags, 30 yards on 11 attempts. Titans, 33 yards on 11 attempts. Ravens, 14 yards on 10 attempts. Cleaning up on those missed tackles, and 11 in the last 2 games compared to 38 in the first 3 games. Also between Rankins, Edwards, Settle, the IDL, and Foley Fadakowski, but the IDL has around 28 pressures on the season. The unit has been extremely underrated for Houston's defense, and they'll need that group to be productive as they continue to get themselves ready for a stretch of games against the Colts down the stretch, Buffalo and Denver. All 3 of those teams run the ball very well. Very well. They're going to need the IDL to be playing at a high level. They're going to need Henry To'oTo'o, who's cleaned up on his missed tackles. Azeez, who's been very good for Houston, underratedly good for the Houston Texans this year through the first 5 games. And let me tell you one thing about Azeez, man. He's pretty much always been good in terms of the limiting of missed tackles, but he's been very good for Houston in coverage this year. Right, so that unit, those 2 units, the IDL, the D tackles, and the linebackers, I think when we look around this team and we kind of start to nitpick on what can be better, who can be better, what group can be better, it's important for us to take a step back and say, well, these guys have improved. I came here on the Locked On Texans podcast, whether it was the Monday through Friday show or the squad show. I killed them. We killed them on the squad show for the amount of missed tackles, especially against the Bucs game where a missed tackle cost them a 4th and 10 stop and they lose that game. Right, I had nearly 20 missed tackles in that game. But then they cleaned up on it in the last 2 games. They cleaned up on it. So we need to be able to come on the show and say that unit took accountability for themselves and they got better. The D tackles have cleaned up on, allowing some of those teams to kind of get active against them on the inside of that defense. Again, a Jags, that's probably 2.8 yards per carry. Titans, 3 yards per carry. Ravens, 1.4 yards per carry, rushing towards the IDL for the Houston Texans. We don't talk about that group a lot. We don't. Well, maybe we should. But again, when we start talking about names, when we throw around names in the NFL, typically the names that get talked about a lot more are the sexy names, the big names, the billboard names, those guys. Those are the driving forces of the NFL. Those are the big money guys. But Houston's guys on the inside of that defensive line, they have been very good. So let's give them some flowers also for the linebackers. taking the calling of, we got to be better, guys. We can't allow 20 missed tackles. 3 games, we can't allow an average of 12 missed tackles, 13 missed tackles. We can't do that because our defensive-minded coach is calling on us to give our team a shot. And the more missed tackles that we miss, the more yards that are given up, the more yards that are given up, the more opportunity that opposing offenses have to go out there and get first downs. The more first downs, the longer time of possession, and then eventually, like in a lot of those games, especially the Bucs, by the time we get to the fourth quarter, we're gassed, we're not off the field, and we're not giving our offense every opportunity that they need to be successful down the stretch. So shout out to the tackles, Tim Settle, Sheldon Rankins, who came back to Houston this year, Folu Fadakazi, who I think has 2 sacks on the year, Mario Edwards, who I think has gotten in on the sack party as well. He's in the party. He paid his dues. He has a sack on the year. Like, those guys have been extremely underrated, and I really love the fact that between EJ Speed, Houston has not really utilized Christian Harris this year. When we started dangling trade rumors around and who Houston could possibly bring in, he's healthy. Maybe Houston need to move on from him because EJ Speed has played well. Henry T continues to, he has up and down, but when he's up, he's up. And then Azeez continues to be Azeez. Like, that linebacker unit has been fairly well for the Houston Texans. On the other side, what player does this team offensively, not named Stroud, need to step up the most after this bye week? They're getting ready for a tough stretch of games. They're going to need guys to be not only just guys, but the guys. Who's that player? More Texans talk. However, before we dive into that important conversation, it's also important for me to let you guys know about Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. You talk about a game changer. You can't really beat that. Their Trade Master perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks, again, like priority shipping, lower prices in this economy. Who don't love lower prices? And for some of my millennials, they got a lot of boomer in us. So if I got some boomers, a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. And I don't know about y'all guys, but week 6 of the NFL season has been by far the best week of the NFL. And you know what? FanDuel wants you to keep yourself in the game, Texan fans. I know it's a bye week, but stay in the game. They got offers you don't want to miss because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. All you got to do is put 5 on it. And if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little bit of something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into those stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better and fun and exciting. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Again, visit FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today. Closing out today's episode with the conversation around a player that a lot of us love. 12 out here. Houston needs more of Nico Collins, and I'm not even going to play around with it. Nico Collins right now for the Houston Texans, of course, number 1 target, 3 TDs on the year. He has been, we talk about Dalton Schultz being a reliable option. Nico Collins has been that reliable option down the field for the Houston Texans. Nico has been major for Houston on first down, 138 yards. a little bit over 17 yards per catch. 39 of his 100 yak yards have come from first down catches. 2 TDs on first down with a long of 50 on first down as well. You look at what he's done for Houston on third down. He has 10 first downs on the year on third down, 12 yards per catch, yak yards of 20, 3 first downs, and a touchdown all on third down. Nico Collins is extremely important for the Houston Texans' offensive success. Rightfully so. He is this team's number one receiver. And about Nico, like when you look at the splits from 7 to 10 yards and 84 routes, he has 12 catches on 19 targets for 166 yards, nearly 14 yards per catch. 4.3 yards, yak yards. Again, 3 TDs on anything 7 to 10 yards from the first down. Nico and 5 touchdowns. 5 first downs, by the way. Nico's ability to beat every type of coverage, man, zone. He has gotten tremendously better in finding those zones, especially on some of those bang 8, skinny posts, slants, whatever you want to call it. Like he's gotten very good at just being able to know where to cut his break in at to kind of beat the zone in between the linebacker and the safety to get some yards upfield. That is Nico Collins to a T. And when you look at what the Houston Texans will need, of course they're going to need Dalton Schultz underneath to get those hitches and out routes going for the offense. Of course they're going to need this team to continue to protect their quarterback. That's probably, without a shadow of a doubt, that's number one. But they're going to need their superstars, what my man Stan Norfleet calls aliens. They're going to need their best players to be their best players. And in this stretch of games, Nico, you want to know what Nico Collins, what he does, in my opinion, when Nico Collins is having a dog type of day, then you get more opportunities for Dalton Schultz underneath. That creates more favorable opportunities for Christian Kirk, who is still trying to figure it out here in Houston, right? And also, Nick Kelly has the opportunity to rotate those young guys on when and when not he wants to kind of plug them in. I think we have to face it. They're still trying to figure out different ways to utilize both Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. But when you got a guy like Nico Collins at his best, when he is playing around his peak, number one, there's nobody really in the league that can guard him consistently for 4 quarters. That height, that speed, and his IQ for the game makes it difficult. The connection and chemistry with C.J. Stroud makes it even more problematic, right? And now you got teams trying to figure out how to stop him. Maybe we got to put 2 guys on him, right? That's the type of player Nico Collins is. So if you got 2 guys on him, what does the coverage look like? Houston also has faced a lot of cover 3 this year, right? But you look at where does it become advantageous for the Houston Texans? If we got 2 guys on them, can we run a little bit more? If we got 2 guys on them, does the play action bode well for us and play into our favor? If I'm speaking in terms of being a Houston Texan play caller. So Nico has to be the guy to do a few things. Number one, again, he can't protect C.J. Stroud from an offensive line standpoint, but he can protect C.J. Stroud from not having the number one option. He needs to be the number one option. Nico Collins has to play like that top 7-8 receiver in the NFL. And he has to do that for the rest of the season. Nico playing at that high level, again, is going to open up opportunities for different type of play calls. Of course, teams are going to fear Nico Collins first. But for Nick Caley, in what creative way, it may not have to be creative, just in what way will you be able to take what the defense is giving you because of how they're scheming around Nico Collins and being able to just 4 yards here, 5 yards here. You want to keep doing that? Keep doing it. We're going to take what you're giving us because that's going to allow the Houston Texans to win the time of possession. Plus, when teams do adjust, 12 out there. That's when you really can get Nico Collins going. So I think Nico Collins Nico is the guy that needs to kick it all off for Houston in terms of who's out there to be a playmaker in combination and in conjunction with Dalton Schultz and what he does, because More so, what Houston asked of Dalton Schultz, it ain't a lot. It's not a lot. But what the expectation and what Houston asks of Nico Collins is a lot. A lot of times we see him answer that call. So it isn't foreign to him. This isn't like he's coming into his third year and some Texan fans may want to move off him. No, this is year 5 for Nico. And Nico Collins, if he wasn't for that injury last year, that hamstring injury, those numbers would have been ridiculous. Crazy. The year before that, he had reached 1,200. This is a Nico Collins that can pretty much run every route and do it at a high level and has that chemistry with quarterback C.J. Stroud. And we know once he gets activated, you look at some of those throws that C.J. Stroud now has the confidence to make because he has his guy out there. Thank you for watching and listening to today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. For my Texas fans out there, you guys had a weekend where you did not have to stress. Now, buckle up because it's about to get crazy. It's about to get hectic. It's about to get wild. The Houston Texans are about to go on a very tough stretch. And I'm going to be real with y'all guys. If Houston in the next 4 games don't go 2-2, the conversations that we're going to have on this show may change. It may start to look like, hey, fire up those mock drafts. But we want to avoid that. I'll be covering your Houston Texans every day this week. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texan fans across the nation, peace.